English translation 590th contact Thursday, the 26th of June 2014, 11:44 hours.
Ah, Quetzal, there you are already. Greetings and welcome.
Greetings to you also, and thanks for your welcome. I see that I am disturbing you at work.
Not at all, I was expecting you. I was working on a new book that I was about to start, but since I knew you were coming, I did not get too absorbed in the work. May I assume that you will also be out and about on the site today, watching the growth of the shrubs, trees, and bushes?
I have already done that, and I am largely satisfied with everything and hope that my satisfaction can remain and that there will be no more irregularities on the trees, bushes, and shrubs. While sitting at the biotope, I saw at the Zelkove that branches were cut off in disgrace, which you should not have done, and which annoys me.
It was not us, Quetzal, but some pitying, envious, or loutish people who are causing damage again. Since months ago at a general assembly in the hall, it was brought up in conversation that the night watch was no longer necessary, because everything had remained quiet for years and no more damage had been done. Since then, all hell has broken loose again. Not only at the Zelkove, but also above the hiking trail near Wolfgang's garden, some damage has been done. At night, people are sneaking around in the area and around the buildings, even up to the kitchen windows and into the corridor to the kitchen door. In the middle of the night, the front doorbell is rung or something else is done. And when we run to get hold of the intruders and sneakers, they disappear so fast that we cannot catch them. There have been 9 such incidents so far since the corresponding clumsy statement was made in the hall, and some of them have also caused serious damage. It just seems that the clumsy statement that the night watch was no longer necessary was the trigger for these new unpleasant incidents.
I did not know that.
You could not either, if Ptah did not tell you. But he was oriented about it because we talked about it together several times in a private way.
No, he did not inform me about it.
If you are not in a hurry, I would have another question or two. But first, it is important for me to know what is the result of what you have decided in the matter I have asked Anjana to inform you about, so that you can decide on the matter and give us some sound advice. This also in terms of whether we should have groups set up in the USA and elsewhere in such a way that they are in contact with the core group.
Anjana has informed me in detail, so I have raised your concerns in the panel. Ta was not present, but I informed him of the outcome of our deliberations. So here is the result. We find that if there is the necessary diligence and desire of a group of persons to dedicate themselves to the Figu mission, then small or larger groups in the USA, but also in other countries, can come together to learn and study within the framework of the mission and the teaching of the truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of the life. This, however, must be accepted by the Mother Center and the core group of the 49, and to a certain extent, it must also necessarily be in charge of such groups. However, the fact that we play RN distance ourselves from the USA, for which there is sufficient justification, is of no consequence at all. Because what the core group of the parent center wants to do and does with regard to US American groups is their concern alone, although we believe that the human beings in the USA who are willing to do so should not be stood in the way. We think that if in the USA, as in other countries, there is a real desire on the part of persons to participate in Figu mission and teaching, and they wish to engage in it, then this should be allowed. In relation to the USA, as elsewhere, ultimately only those persons can be held responsible for inadequacies, etc., who have caused damage or refuse to comply with the rules on our part with impossible demands. This also applies to those persons who, in relation to Figu groups in the USA, etc., act as lord and master, as group leader and leader, etc., and also refuse to recognize and implement the general Figu rules. So we decide that such groups should be accepted, although they should not create their own sign, etc., but should only use the Figu emblem. This emblem should and must be uniformly valid worldwide and may not be replaced by others or misused. Therefore, no intermediate signs, etc., may be used. For this purpose, however, It is necessary that the respective grouping is titled in such a way that on the one hand, the name of the country, and then also the main abbreviation FIGU together with the term mission, is used as the first value. We imagine that this must absolutely be associated with the mission, for example, as FIGU mission. Concerning the grouping, we find the following 21 different proposal forms, which can be used, but the core group in the parent center should decide on this. 1. Interessengruppierung für die FIGU, mission. 2. Interessengruppe für die FIGU, mission. 3. Interessengilde für die FIGU, mission. 4. Interessenkreis für die FIGU, mission. 5. Interessenvereinigung für die FIGU, mission. 6. Interessenfamilie für die FIGU, mission. 7. Interessenverben für die FIGU, mission. 8. Interessenschar für die FIGU, mission. 9. Interessennering für die FIGU, mission. 10. Interessenblock für die FIGU, mission. 11. Interessenverbindung für die FIGU, mission. 12. Interessenbund für die FIGU, mission. 13. Interesseneinheit für die FIGU, mission. 14. Interessencrew für die FIGU, mission. 15. Interessenrate für die FIGU, mission. 16. Interessentrupp für die FIGU, mission. 17. Interessenzweig für die FIGU, mission. 18. Interessenstamm für die FIGU, mission. 19. Interessenzirkel für die FIGU, mission. 20. Interessenmitglieder für die FIGU, mission. 21. Interessenpool für die FIGU, mission. The respective group name should be preceded by the corresponding city or country, for example, Colorado, as you have requested. Hence the name Colorado Interessenpool für die FIGU mission. However, the condition must remain that the whole thing is kept in German and not translated into another language.
You have gone to a lot of trouble, and I thank you also the committee, because I think that your advice is very helpful to us. But what is now concerning the pyramids and the thing with Jose Barreto?
We have also decided on that and have come to the following advice. With regard to the pyramids, it is probably correct that you no longer have them made by yourselves, but publish the necessary measurements, so that those interested can make them themselves. This also saves you a lot of work and hassle. And what you have further instructed Njana regarding all that Jose Barreto has made and is distributing, this should be accepted and allowed from the core group, also when other persons are doing this kind of work. It goes without saying that this also applies to standing or portable objects, etc., that are made and distributed by the missionary group. Such items, objects, etc., which are put into circulation in this way, can be very useful for the mission or for the spreading of the teaching of the truth, teaching of the Spirit, teaching of the life, in such a way as to arouse interest in the human beings without any missionary factor being present.
So, in the future we can make the mass for the pyramids public and accept the making of objects etc. with GL symbols and other FIGU data etc. Now a question regarding your Ulrach. Is the animal male or female? Ptah once told me that it is native to Era.
It is a female mammal, and in fact it is an animal native to Era.
You Playaran do not keep pets in the same sense as Earthlings. That is, that animals are kept in human living quarters. We have talked about this several times, but I am also interested in this matter. So if you can just say something in general about the animals and the creatures and their living space, etc. Also that critters of all kinds do not belong in human dwellings. According to your understanding, animals are only living creatures that are called mammals, while animals are non-sucking life forms and moreover do not belong in the realm of birds and all other feathered animals. Also, reptiles of all kinds as well as amphibians, fish and insects etc. are not described by you as animals and creatures, but are specified in the form as I have called them.
This is correct, because animals are creatures, as well as other living beings of every genus and species, as you have just named them, do not belong in the living area of human beings, but are also to be kept outside of it in the open countryside, or in corresponding animal or animal buildings, or in animal or animal enclosures, etc. if they are kept by human beings and are cared for.
And how is it with you? Is it usual to keep animals or animals in enclosures, as for example with us on Earth, where especially dogs and cats, guinea pigs, mice, rats, hamsters, birds, and fish are kept and given false love?
This is not the case here, because all animal and gelatinous life forms, as well as all other life forms, live in the wild, where they may also have suitable stables and shelters, as you once called such buildings. But this is only true when animals or creatures, etc., are looked after by human beings, which is extremely rare.
You are a hobby farmer with cattle that you brought from the Earth to Era. So you have cows and of course from time to time also calves, besides bisons, buffaloes and horses as well as various red deer, etc. I have also seen chickens, geese, ducks and rabbits on your very large grounds used for this purpose. And apart from a few animals that you look after yourself, there are also some cows that you milk, as well as 2 horses that you sometimes ride. All others living completely free and wild. You are also often surrounded by your ulrak, which has simply become accustomed to you without any special training or education, as you told me. But how big is, according to the earthly masses, the whole huge area of land which you control with all the life forms on it in many different genera and species, and which is also partly cultivated by your androids?
According to the masses known to you, the entire area is about 340 square kilometers. But my personal property per family is only 1 hectare, while the rest of the land belongs to the general public, but is made available to me for the purpose of keeping animals and other forms of life. Some settled life forms originate from Era itself, others from the Earth or from other worlds unknown to you. The whole area of the country is open and freely accessible to all persons from all over Era, who are able to enjoy themselves in terms of their interests and through observations of the animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and other living creatures, as well as the diverse plants, flowers, blossoms, trees, bushes, and shrubs, etc. My large area of land in this respect is known all over Era and corresponds to what you on Earth would call a national park.
As you told me once before, none of the animals and creatures, etc., are killed, nor are they used for food or in any other way. And you also said that hunting is not allowed either.
That is of correctness. All animals and all creatures, etc., including those in the wild, may not be hunted or killed in our country unless there is an emergency situation when an animal or creature living under human care is injured by some unfortunate circumstance to such an extent that it suffers terrible pain and is no longer viable. In such a case, it may be released from its suffering by killing. Hunting is not permitted as a matter of principle, because every animal and creature, stock, etc. in the wild can and must regulate itself by its own laws.
And predators and birds of prey, do you also have them? That is actually to be assumed. But what about the protection of the human beings from predators, especially when confrontations arise?
That is of correct because predators, beasts of prey, and birds of prey, etc., are natural regulators of all wildlife in the wild. And since we do not interfere with our nature in any way through human activities, everything in the whole of Era's wildlife is regulated in a normal, natural way, so no human intervention is necessary. Unfortunately, the opposite is true on Earth, with catastrophic overpopulation playing a major role because it drastically limits the habitats of wild animals and wildlife. A further factor in relation to the killing of wild animals and wildlife, as well as domestic animals, is that the human beings on Earth still live in nutritional conditions which have resulted from their early times, so they are dependent on natural meat. At present, only the basic steps are being taken to synthesize meat and to end the killing of animals for meat. Another factor in the killing of wild animals, game, and pets is that Earth humans are so many of them still carry the hunting instinct within them and follow it. And what you ask about the protection of the human beings when they are confronted with predators and large birds of prey Our largest errand birds of prey have a wingspan of 6 meters, while the largest predators have a total length of 5 meters. They are driven away by vibrational vibrations.
We also know something of this type of vibration against dogs, cats, foxes, martens, and other wild animals and birds, although our vibration devices leave much to be desired, as they are not always sufficiently effective, as I have often found.
Our vibrating devices are absolutely reliable, and when we go out into the wild, and it is expected that predators or dangerous birds of prey may be present in an area, each person carries an appropriate vibrating device. This ensures all safety in connection with dangerous encounters and, as far as our records make clear, there has never been a dangerous confrontation between human beings and any predators, beasts of prey, etc., or birds of prey for hundreds of years. So we do not kill any animals, beasts of prey, etc., or birds of prey either, because no dangerous extreme situations can arise between them and the human beings.
Unfortunately, the Earthlings are still dependent on the killing of animals for a long time, on the one hand for meat, and on the other hand for hunting. This can probably only change for the better if, on the one hand, meat can be produced synthetically, and, on the other hand, if the mass overpopulation is reduced to a planetarily bearable level by birth-regulating measures.
That is of correctness.
Then you have answered all the questions I had. Thanks.
Then I want to leave now. If you need mine, you can call me through Njana or Florena. Farewell, my friend.